Hello?
Hello.
You're right.
Does Metal Mike remember that we were roommates in 1987 at Cannes?
Yeah, when you walked up to that hooker, I thought it was Monty. It was you.
Yeah, by the time I got back to America, Warren Wyatt started a rumor that I picked up a prostitute, took her to my room, and found out she had a dick.
Well, that's not true because we were walking on the Rue de la Croisette in Cannes. And Warren Wyatt is an asshole, by the way.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, well, he owes so many people money. I mean, I had a band playing one of my festivals, Saigon Kick. So I sent him money for the band and to fly over from Florida. And he just shelved the money in his own pocket and the band never showed up at the festival.
You know, I worked with Saigon Kick, the Third Stone Atlantic deal. I was involved in that deal. I had to deal with Warren Wyatt on a regular basis. So I remember. He also had, what was that band? Crimson Glory, right?
Yeah, I signed them to Roadrunner in '86. But the funny thing was, I was at the Button's house in, I think, Hallandale or Hollywood, somewhere in Florida. And I just flew in from the Netherlands because I went down to, I think, to Tampa, Clearwater Beach, actually, to meet Dan Johnson, the producer of Crimson Glory.
Yeah, I know Dan, yeah.
And so I just flew in, and at midnight at the Button's house, the club, the show of Saigon Kick started. But I just flew in. For me, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, so I was really tired. So I was sitting at the bar, and next to me were Dave Feld and Jason Flom, and they were there that night to check out the band to sign them to Atlantic.
Yeah, what happened was I worked for Third Stone Music, right? Mm-hmm. And Atlantic came to us and said, we kind of like this band. We can't sign them. Will you guys sign them? So we went to Florida and we checked them out. We ended up doing the deal. They had a gold record, so it worked out pretty good. Yeah,
I have one hanging on the wall for Love Is On The Way, I think the single was.
Right. That was a big single here, too.
Yeah. I did their first shows in Europe at Dynamo Open Air Festival and so, but I wanted to have them on my own Aardschok festival, and then Warren Wyatt, put the money in his own pocket, and I stopped working with him.
I can understand that. Wow, it's been a long time. We met each other 33 years ago.
87 or 88, I think, or maybe. Yeah. Was it around that?
We were roommates, man. We shared a.
Oh yeah, I know that shitty hotel with the iron elevator, the gate, iron gated. I remember now, but of course, Monty. I think that was 86, and you were 1 or 2 years later at. I've been there like 12 years in a row for Roadrunner, at working at the booth, listening to all the cassette tapes the bands were shoveling in and stuff, and send them away with a smile and.
Were we together when we met Davy Jones?
I'm not sure. I mean, I talked to him at the Martinez bar, and I told him, is it so it's your fault that David Bowie had to change his name? That's what I told him. He probably heard it 1,000 times before.
Yeah, I think I heard that in the interview that you did. Hi, Jim. Okay. How are you?
Hello, mate. Not too bad. Thanks yourself.
Good. Are we waiting for Ed?
Yeah, Ed's just messaging me now. Dennis is on his way on Zoom. He's going to log in on his phone, so we'll see how that goes.
I apologize. I thought it was noon. I'm on the East Coast in the States, and I thought it was noon.
It's cool. I said I'd try and get it around noon, but I know Mike has his dinner around about 6, so I thought I'll bring it back for him.
Mike gets top preference. I understand.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Should I put on my crown now, or should I save it for later?
Okay, Ed's,
I have really good memories of you, man. We had a lot of good fun, man. I was only at Roadrunner for a short period of time because I got booted, but I had fun while I was there.
Are you doing stuff for Nuclear Blast now, or?
No, I'm like I'm not working for a label anymore now. I haven't worked for labels in quite a while. I just do a podcast and a radio show.
Okay. I still have a weekly radio show, and I still do my magazine. Actually, I'm almost finishing the magazine right now, but I might skip it for a week before releasing it because the stores are still closed here. I print magazines, send it to my subscribers, and it won't be in the shops for sale. So I sell a shitload online. People order it online because it's not in the stores. But still, you print magazines for a distributor, and it's just lying there,
Yeah.
on pallets. So that's a bummer right now. So I might skip a week before releasing the new one. I almost finished. So because if it's if they prolong the lockdown or let's say the shop shut down, the lockdown is not so bad. I mean, I'll work from inside anyway, 24/7. But people have to be able to go to a train station and get the magazine out of the stands and stuff. Otherwise, you print a magazine for nothing.
Right.
Hi,
So-
Dennis.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey, Dennis Kloeth.
Hey.
Hey, ouwe makker.
Ever
Hey,
since you mentioned him, Mike, I've been looking for him for 4 months. And
Yeah.
just last week or the week before, I
Well,
found him.
he fled away to Indonesia last time I saw him.
Yeah, I know. I'm here now for 30 years.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
started, was it Dino Records with your brother?
No, that was they're still in Holland. I mean, Peter's Music Factory. I ran Peter's Music Factory here in Indonesia for him, but that didn't work that well.
Okay. But you
Okay,
didn't work with your brother together in Indonesia?
No. I'm alone. I'm here
Okay.
alone.
Okay.
I have a golf business here.
Okay, that's good. What's your handicap?
8.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay.
Steve, meet Dennis Kloeth. Dennis Kloeth, meet Steve Riccardo.
Hey,
Dennis
Dennis.
was the first Roadrunner employee, and Steve was the first / second 1.5 in the American office.
Yeah,
Whoops.
now I'm in the Amsterdam office with Kees.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Willem Sparkweg. The first
Yeah,
one.
Were you there, Dennis, in 1987?
I was no. I was there in 1983, and I was there for nearly 2 years.
Okay, I came after.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Mhm.
I can't.
Obviously, since you were the first one, obviously I came after.
I think I fucked up in the video because I say, Steve, that you worked from 86 to 87, I think. But I think your timeline is all within 87, if I'm not mistaken.
It was actually, no, it was 86 and 80.
Oh, was it?
I got there in October 86.
86. Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, thanks for joining. I'll give like a brief introduction.
Gone already.
The reason I asked about 87 is because I went to Amsterdam and I spent a week in the office in 87, but I can't remember I know there were guys there. I think Ed that's coming on was one of the guys that was taking me to the red light district every night because I'd never been to
The
Amsterdam.
usual stuff.
So it was quite an experience.
I think the office was then located in the Van Egenstraat next to the Vondel, what's it, the park. So that was where the ground floor was Roadrunner, and the first floor I had my Aardschok Metal Hammer office located, one floor up,
I
and
think
doing
so.
also the A&R and PR for Roadrunner at the same time.
Mhm.
That was in the Van Egenstraat.
I will. It's just occurred to me as well that Mike. I don't know if you noticed, but Steve signed the Great Cat.
My condolences.
Are you trying to start trouble already? I told you I would get on this call and now you're picking on me already. Thanks.
Well, I'm not picking on you. Whenever I never had a normal conversation with the Great Cat because the volume of her mouth is a bit different than what normal people would use.
What? Did you say something? Believe me, I had to talk to her regularly. I know exactly what you're talking about. There was not talking, it was yelling usually,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Such a small, tiny, such a short girl, such a big mouth.
She's still around. I was just on Twitter and I saw she posts about 10 posts every day, It's
Yeah,
like,
probably the 255th birthday of Beethoven or whatever.
She won't speak to me anymore after I did that mini documentary on her.
you're not the only one. I mean, I don't think she speaks to half of the world, more than half of the world. I mean, it's like.
Actually, I only met her once in person. I was walking up the stairs in Dortmund where the Metal Hammer offices was, and she walked in there for an interview, and she only said one line in the office: "Why am I not on the cover?" And she left out the door. And just when she was walking down the stairs out the door, I walked in there because I knew she was there. I wanted to meet her. And so I yelled, or she yelled at me for a minute, and then that was it.
Well, thanks everyone for joining, because I know this is a bit impromptu and a bit unorthodox. It's not like an interview format, but I think what I've done is I don't think I'm taking any liberties here. From what I can gather, Jan van der Linden got the shares from Case for Roadrunner Productions BV on the 27th of February 1981. That's 40 years this coming Saturday. So as the only person on the planet who's bothered to read up that far back, I feel I'm in a position to say, yeah, that's when the label started. So I think it's about right, and I'm satisfied with it. So I thought it might just be a nice way to commemorate that by having a mini party with those who are around that 1980 through to 86 period. So thank you very, very much. And Mike's gone overboard with the banners and over delivered as usual.
Yeah, when they moved offices, or they were throwing stuff away, and I got some of the banners. And I thought I'd hang one up behind me, to make it more homey for you guys.
Thank you very much.
So where are you now?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm in the Netherlands, in a town called Sonnenbreugel, just 2 miles out north of Eindhoven, where I run my magazine already for 41 years.
Great. I started with Oar.
I know. Oh, you were writing for Oar? Because I always was in contact with Kees Baars and then Hans van der Heuvel, who were, let's say, the hard rock writers there.
Yeah. I joined Barend when he set up Oar in his flat in Amsterdam,
Okay.
North. And then we moved on to the Haarlemmer Houttuinen in Amsterdam.
Okay, let me switch on some lights here because it's getting dark.
Bye, Mike.
So where's Ed?
Where's sorry, Ed is in traffic in Amsterdam. He'll be joining us shortly.
Okay.
Mike, when was the last time you saw Dennis in person?
Dennis Kloeth, maybe 1984.
Yeah, more than 30. Yeah, more than 30 years.
36 years.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'm not a
1984,
math
I think.
expert. I'm just helping.
No, because he moved to Indonesia, I think, around that time. I'm not sure. Maybe.
In 87.
Oh yeah, well, okay, it was 87, and maybe I saw you that year on a festival or so. I don't know, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was looking after Billy Preston in those days.
who is she?
Billy Preston.
I'm a metalhead, man. I'm a metalhead.
Yeah,
I like Billy Preston.
Huh?
I liked Billy Preston. He's no longer with us, but I liked him.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was difficult to work with, but he was a great guy.
I think the biggest selling act around that time for Roadrunner was Jim Croce, right? The Canadian singer-songwriter.
And the Nylons.
And the Nylons, okay.
Nylons, I still have my golden record here.
Okay.
But that's only for 50,000 copies, and eventually they sold more than 100,000 copies.
Okay.
It's one thing I'm going to try and lean on when I do like the next stage of the research, because now the next period I'm going to look at is sort of 1987 onwards. And one thing you spot in that period is, even though Case is trying to drive those bands, those Typo Negatives and Sepulturas, he's trying to drive them forward. And I know his mission was to get a gold record in the United States, because I don't work in the industry, so I don't know if that's the most prestigious thing you can do. But
Platinum's higher than gold.
But the very nuts and bolts of Roadrunner's business was still very much licensing, even at that period. If you look on the Discogs page, there's still racks and racks of really off-piste records, which you wouldn't expect Roadrunners to be putting out. So in my head, I thought it'd be good to go down that route, because even though Typo's Bloody Kisses being the first gold record for the label is like a monumental part of that story, Dennis has a Roadrunner gold record hanging up in his office from 1987. Yeah. So it's just interesting to me that, again, we get the prolific bands that we all know and love from a metal perspective, but it really was that that other stuff, which really kept the lights on.
The Roadrunner record with an Attic label.
Yeah, this ties into your story, Mike, about bringing is it Hard and Heavy to Case?
Well, I told you before, I didn't know of the existence of a guy called Cees Wessels until I stumbled onto a record in Port Vale when I was buying my new wave of British heavy metal singles at a warehouse in the middle of England, and a box came in with the Anvil Hard and Heavy record on Attic Records. I stole the shipping letter which was in the box when I bought the album. I called the phone number on the shipping. It was Alexander Mayer. And he said, he was in contact with a guy in Hilversum, wanted to start a record company, Cees Wessels. So I drove down there and I had to give my vinyl copy of that record to that guy. And Al Mayer sent me a new copy. So that's how I got in touch with Cees Wessels the first time.
And Al Mayer had a band called Anvil on his label.
Yeah, that's the record I was given, Hard and Heavy by the band Anvil. Actually, Anvil, half a year before, they had the same record out under the band name Lips, the name of the singer, but they changed it to Anvil, and that was actually the second pressing of the same record. But that first pressing was never released in Europe.
Somebody just sent me this T-shirt not too long ago.
Oh, it's a Tank T-shirt.
And it's got like all the bands on the back. I don't know if you could see that.
Yeah, I see it.
Nice.
I know most of the. Actually, we just did. I think 4 months or 5 months in a row, we did a special in Aardschok about all those new wave of British heavy metal bands. Because I did shows with all those bands. I did the Raven shows, the Venom, Fist, Tigers of Pantang, Jaguar, Satan. So I was working with all those bands, booking them into clubs because they didn't have a lot of work to do in England, but they were really popular in Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium. So I wasn't.
When I worked at Metal Blade, we put out that double album, the new wave of British heavy metal. Lars from Metallica actually sequenced a record for us. I had to talk to him on the phone a few times. Brian Slagel let me deal with Lars. That was fun. And he sequenced the album, Diamond Head and all those bands from that era. It was a pretty cool record.
Yep. Yeah, I have a lot of stories about those bands to tell, but I'm still in touch with most of those guys. I mean, even if the bands don't exist anymore. I mean, Raven still crashes in my place here when they're on tour and, they want to save some money in hotels or something. So I'll see those guys. Well, not this year, of course, or last year, but normally, I'll see those guys.
Mike, did you have any connection with a guy called Terry Gavigan?
Who? Terry
Gavigan of Guardian Records.
I visited him in, I think, in Durham.
That's right. Yeah.
I've been to his place because I was buying all the stuff of his bands like Holocron,
is it?
Hellenbeck was the first one, and Hologround and Mithra. Those were the three main bands on Guardian Records. So I visited his place because it was only like 30 miles south of Newcastle, and in Newcastle was Neat Records, and I did a lot of work with Neat Records with their bands, and also selling the 7-inch singles through the magazines in the early years when they weren't tied with Roadrunner yet. Tied to Roadrunner.
Yeah, I was trying to make a connection in terms of, because obviously Case isn't a metal led by passion. He's a metal led by sort of connection and by networking through his days at Polygram and Mercury and the stuff he did with Dennis. So I was trying to figure out how he'd get all his bands, and it looks like when it came to Neat Records, if you were a band up in the northeast of England, you'd probably try and knock on Dave Hill's door. Is it Dave Hill from Neat Records? And if they turned you down, you'd self-finance your album through Terry Gavigan at Guardian. And it just, as it happens, Terry Gavigan was mates with Case, and Terry wasn't really much of a label guy. He owned a studio, and that was his business. But he took on a managerial role and basically sent those bands over to Case and said, if you fancy these guys are all right. They're working at my studio. And quite a lot of those first lineup, that first Roadrunner roster comes from Terry Gavigan.
Okay. Well, Roadrunner put out the Hellenbeck record, but that was then through licensing through Neat Records, because I think Roadrunner never put out an album directly from that was signed to Guardian.
No. Well, but what I'm saying is you'd have like an EP or some releases signed to Guardian, but they would eventually be Roadrunner direct signings.
Okay.
Yeah. In the most case, Satan's the exception. I don't know what Satan did actually. They might have released their first EP on Guardian and then did Caught in the Act on Roadrunner.
Yeah, Caught in the Act was only on Roadrunner. That was funny. They did their first European tour starting at the Dynamo in the Netherlands, and they never heard of a carnet in their life. So they were held at the border, and my father had to grant or something, to the how was it, like the customs. He had to vouch with his store he had, so the Satan could enter the country with all their gear and backline and stuff on the Caught in the Act tour.
Wow.
So my father made that first tour happen.
In a similar vein, because I'm talking about obviously how Case would acquire these bands without actually knowing them directly, and he'd use a network. Do you know how Connie got into the picture on the US side, Steve?
Connie Barrett.
Barrett.
We have to talk about her again. Oh my God!
I don't think we talked about her in our chat, mate. I think we skirted up.
Are you recording this show?
I am, yeah.
And it's going to be on YouTube?
After everyone says what they want taken out.
Because I can't tell the story about Connie Barrett.
That's what I'm happy to edit it out. I want to hear it though.
I met her because when I started at Roadrunner in October '86, she was managing Carnivore and Whiplash. So I worked with her because of those bands. That is when I believe I told you the story about the first time I met Peter Steele. And he said, if you fuck my record up, I'll kill you. And the guy was like a monster. So he kind of intimidated me a little because I'm only 5'8". And Holly Lane was standing next to me and she's like, I don't think he's kidding. But my dealings with Connie were always like, she was just very, wanted to get a lot of things happening for her bands, but I'm not quite sure how much she succeeded with those two bands. Members of those bands obviously went on to bigger and better things. In New York at the time, though, they were like mid-level bands. Why did you bring Connie up? Was it because of that?
It was because I was trying to ask the same question to Richard Tamini. Richard Tamini played on, he produced the first Fallout record, Pete Steele's first band. He then played synth as a session player on both Carnivore, record and Typo, and because he was the Terry Gavigan of this story. He was pretty much like flying the flag for Pete's bands wherever it was, and he was working in with the majors. He ended up playing synth for Girls Just Want to Have Fun. He had connections there, and they were telling him, "Listen, don't bring Carnivore around here, mate. This isn't going to work. It's trash." But he was still trying to fight the good fight. So the story goes, he goes down to CBGB's to take some pictures because he was press at that time. He was a journo. And he meets what's the guy's name who ran CBGB's?
Hilly Crystal.
Yes. So he speaks to Hilly, says, can we get, this band, they're weird. They've got like fur coats. They've got this post-apocalyptic thing going on. He goes, yeah, sure. He speaks to Connie, who was doing, having meetings with, I think, Whiplash and doing some work with Anthrax as well, because Scott Ian's there that day or something. There's all these pictures that Richard sent of that day. Loads of people there. And anyway, he speaks to Connie, says, I've got this band called Carnivore. And then the next thing he knows, they're signed to Roadrunner 2 weeks later. So I'm just trying to figure out what happened in that 2 weeks. But
I don't know who signed Carnivore to Roadrunner. I don't know. They were signed before I got there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It had to be through Amsterdam. It wasn't in America.
Do
you know, Mike?
No, I don't know. I never heard the band until I got the cassette of their first songs. I don't know. I really don't know how they got him.
Probably Jules Kurtz.
Yeah.
Jules Kurtz.
Probably.
Jules Kurtz, the lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he brought Case many contacts.
He did. That's true, because I had to deal with Jules on a regular basis. He probably introduced Connie Barrett to Case,
Right.
and they
He
did a
did.
deal with both the bands. You're probably right about that.
Yeah.
Because it
Jules
wasn't
still alive?
Molly.
Does he
Jules
still?
and Case were very close.
Is he still alive, Jules Kurz?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
2013 he passed. Connie
Yeah,
passed away as well.
She did?
She
Did
did. Early 90s.
Yeah.
Circumstances.
Early 90s.
I don't
Wow.
know. I'm talking Metal Archives here. All I know is she passed away in the early 90s.
Wow, that wasn't very much after I met her, and she was pretty young.
Yeah, let's put an asterisk on that with the word citation needed, but that's what I know. So Dennis, when
You're talking about weird bands. I used to work for Phonogram with a weird band called the New York Dolls. And I traveled with them for like 3 weeks all over Europe.
yeah,
2 days was more than enough. And I spent 3 weeks with them on the road.
You know, I worked with them because a band I was managing toured the States with them. Do you know there's only one member left? Sylvain.
Oh.
Sylvain passed away about
Is
a
that
month ago.
Wow. They were all very unhealthy guys anyway when I toured with them.
Yeah, they were into smack and stuff. So, you know, I mean, they were like heavy drug
Yeah.
users, you know?
Every drug in the universe.
yeah. So with your background, Dennis, so you were working with bands like Black Sabbath, and you expressed an interest like Nazareth, Rush, ZZ Top, all those really great sort of traditional.
Runaways.
Yeah, all those traditional hard rock and sort of proto metal bands. So what was your impression when Case comes to you and says, right, there's this bloke called King Diamond, don't be cut off by him?
The reason why I left Roadrunner basically is because although I was working with these bands like Nazareth, Thin Lizzy, Black Sabbath, New York Dolls, Runaways, and all those bands, Rush, and Backman Turner Overdrive, they were phenomenal bands. But all of a sudden I had to work with smaller bands and in smaller places. And I don't know, I that was a complete different thing for me. I mean, and in many cases, I was driving the van because there was nobody else.
Nothing wrong with that, is there, Mike?
Well, I did the same for Slayer, on the Hell Awaits tour, because nobody could drive a stick shift when they came with their van to Europe. So me and Andre drove them through Europe on the Hell Awaits tour.
The first time I drove the van was with the Boomtown Rats. When they came to Amsterdam the very first time.
Dennis, please tell us that you drove the van for the Runaways, because I'd like to hear that story.
Well, we had a luxurious bus for them because the girls were demanding that.
And they were like 16 probably too at that time.
Yeah. Well, I picked them up. Basically. They arrived in France, in Paris, and then I drove down to Paris with the bus. It was like a luxurious, beautiful bus, and then we drove from Paris 2 days later to Amsterdam. And Lita Ford, Joan Jett, they were wild. I mean, they were
Jerry Curry.
Yeah. And they were beautiful. Lita Ford at least was.
I met her I met her the first time 2 years ago at the Alcatraz Festival, and she still looks good.
Well, I disagree with you on that. I've seen a picture of her recently. Different.
Okay.
I think Joan Jett looks good.
Never met her.
Yeah.
I get to meet Joan and Lita. They're cool. Joan Jett's one of the coolest people.
Oh,
she's totally cool.
Yeah, really cool. And I enjoyed touring with them because they were crazy. They were fucking crazy.
Kim Fowley wasn't there too, was he?
Right.
Was he there? Was Kim
Yes.
Fowley? Oh my
Yes.
God. That must have been fun.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, here he comes.
Yeah, that was one of the bands that Case basically signed up for Polygram, for Phonogram.
Yeah.
Through Mercury, if I'm not mistaken.
The Case of Mercury Day is 74.
Yeah.
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 Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
As you're in Indonesia, this was the only thing I could salvage when they sold all the gold records at Roadrunner. This is for 25,000 cassettes, a gold record for Sepultura's Arise in Indonesia.
In Indonesia, right? With Indo Semasakti.
Yep.
That's the label. That's the distributor. That was the same distributing company that I had, and I connected them with Case.
Yeah. So this is the only one because they were selling all their gold and platinum records for a shitload of money, and I did a bit on this one at least to have some stuff left from Roadrunner.
That is bloody unique, man.
Yep.
That's very unique.
Gentleman, Ed Von Zell has entered the room. Hello.
Hey, Ed.
Hey.
So I'll just do a quick reintroduction for your benefit. Ed, you'll obviously know everyone here, but I think I'm not taking any liberties with the dates. I think Jan van der Linden said specifically, he typed it out, 27th of February, 1981. That's when the label was born after he acquired 50% of the shares. I think I'm all right in saying that that's when the label begun. We're here to celebrate that. Mike has over-delivered by dressing up his office. So Steev, tell me the last time you spoke to Ed.
Ed, help me out here. In 1987, you were in the Amsterdam office, right?
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you face to face was in Los Angeles. Weren't you at Metal Blade later?
Yes.
Yeah,
but
I went out, I think, 89. I think in 89 I was in LA, and then I think that's where I met you and some of the other Metal Blade guys.
Didn't I meet you in 1987, and weren't you one of the guys that was taking me to the red light district every night when I was in Amsterdam for a week?
I've never been there.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Hey, it's a long time ago, man.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember. I know a couple
remember
guys.
you lost your keys there.
There were a couple of guys in that office that were taking me out every night. Was there a guy named Jack?
No, I took you out one night, and I'm pretty sure Louis was there too.
Louis Dobbelaar.
Yeah.
Louis Dobbelaar, yeah.
So one of those guys was in jail, right?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I'm sorry, man.
Maybe after.
I forgot I met you in California.
Yeah, how are you, man? It's a long time.
Yeah, it's been that was only 30 years ago. So, we're bound to not remember every detail.
All right. You're good?
Yeah. Congratulations on getting Marty Friedman, by the way, Ed.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Well, Marty, I know Marty from the same period, I think from 87 or so. I have a very long relationship with Marty. Off and on, he's been on another label too in the meantime, of course, but yeah, I think he's one of the most unique players out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got a story, especially like I was speaking to Brian Slagel about Roadrunner and especially what happened when it came to the US and how it affected the wider market and things. And one thing we were talking about was the Japanese market. And the Japanese market is incredibly difficult to, obviously shout me down if I'm wrong, but apparently the Japanese market was incredibly difficult to crack because it's a different consumer culture completely. So over here, we seem to, especially these days, we value the physical product. We value biggest bang for your buck. But over there is a lot of focus is on the virtuosity of the instrument. And that seems to be where the pivot lies. So and that's where Marty Friedman comes in because that's where he spent most of his career, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any truth to Brian's story? He told me when he came to Amsterdam to visit, he must have been talking about some licensing arrangements with Case. You guys took him out for a curry. And as an American with a rather mild palate.
I think Korean food was Cees's trap.
Japanese and Korean.
And I think there was a favorite Indonesian, Tempo Dulu. In the
Yeah, and
How
whenever
are you,
he,
Dennis? This is a
whenever,
long time ago, Dennis. How are you?
yeah, whenever Kees was in Jakarta, we went for the most sumptuous Indonesian meals ever because he's crazy about that too.
When was the last? Sorry,
yeah.
I'm going to say, when was the last time you saw Ed, Dennis?
Oh, gosh.
Early 80s, I think, right? 84, maybe?
Versus,
Or no,
versus-
maybe at Meet somewhere, I think.
yeah, meet him. Sure, meet him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So, a long
meet,
time.
meet him was always fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I remember a nice story. Meet him. We were going to the bar in the Martinez, right? And I was with Michel Damen. What's the guy who owns Free Record Shop? The owner.
Breukhoven, where he died.
Hans Breukhoven.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were 3 or 4 guys and the manager of Saxon. Because Michel was looking after Saxon in those days. So we get out of the bar, the Martinez bar, and we go across from the Martinez bar, and we hop into another bar, and we started drinking, and we become completely legless drunk. We get out of that place, and we wanted to go to the Martinez. There's a taxi right on the corner of the bar that we were at, and we get out of the bar and we go into the taxi, and the taxi driver says, "So where do you want to go?" Martinez, we say. Martinez bar. And the guy gets out of the car, opens the doors on the other side, and he says, "This is the Martinez." And 10 meters away from the car.
How much did he charge you?
I was on the floor because I thought, holy fuck, are we that stupid? So he just opened the door on the other side. He says, "This is the Martinez, sir."
How can you get drunk at the Martinez bar? Beers were 35 pop back in the day.
Yeah, but in those days we had expense accounts.
Oh, okay.
One thing
We were staying at the Martinez, by the way.
Nice.
there was a couple of comments in my but Wally couldn't make it. Wally van Bindop.
Oh yeah.
But
Wally
one thing that something which you both said, Ed and Wally, who are obviously in here, about certain innovations that the label tried to sort of push. Wally said that it was the first place he'd worked, and to his knowledge, the first place he knew to have a computer network as part of the office.
Oh yeah. Yep.
How did that come? Was Case just particularly, enthusiastic about new technology?
Yeah, but Case was like that. Case wanted to have it all installed.
Yeah. To what end though? Couldn't the accountant just use his normal books, and couldn't he just?
Well, the accountant was a guy called Han de Waal, and he did everything manual.
Mm.
And Case said, "Fuck off! I mean, get a computer."
And similarly, Ed, you mentioned the Roadrunner was one of the first labels to push CDs, or at least one of the first metal labels.
Yeah.
I wanted to focus more on that in the video, but there was just no space for it. But I did have a look around, and I think they're called. Oh Christ, what they're called now? I think they're called the Slimline Collection. There's like a collector's circle called the Roadrunner Slimline Collectors.
Yeah.
And they're all going for like, it could be just here you go. Mike's going to bring out the whole box full of them.
Shit, you know me.
Like the banner, Mike.
Yeah, I'll grab some. Hold on. Let me put on a switch on an extra light here.
But they're going for like, must be upwards of £100 each. Some going up to about £350.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So
Mike just went on Discogs. He's selling them right now. He'll be right back in about 5 minutes.
Oh, man. I have so much rare stuff you won't believe. Then this is not even the rare stuff.
Wow, that's nice, man. The banner. I like the banner.
I mentioned
Mike is up to the red light district.
Yeah, these are the slim lines. The funny thing is, I think you could open them in like two parts, and they were like, you see, like this.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Bottom went up like this. This, by the way, metal on metal. I think the second
Nice.
Anvil record.
wow.
But it looked shitty. I mean, this is like the track listing is with a sticker on the hard plastic. The CD is normal, but
Wow.
the booklet is the same. But for it's. I think Zijl got the idea from the Japanese people. They came to him with this kind of packaging.
Another thing that I left on the cutting room floor was I know his wife was quite big on Japanese art. And had been for some time. So, and one of the other remarkable things about Roadrunner, which again I don't really focus on, is they licensed out to the Far East through the Far East Metal Syndicate, which I think is it's quite remarkable, especially in like those earlier days of an indie label to like push metal all the way out to Japan. So I think that's my tinfoil hat theory that's the connection there. As you say, it's from Japan, and that was where the connection was made.
They were manufactured in Japan, those CDs.
Yeah.
And I think there was also probably, maybe an exchange, because as far as I know, no, there wasn't a case, loudness.
Aki Morishita, didn't he do that? Aki Morishita, was it Apollon Records or something? Who did it?
Yeah, that could be Apollon, yeah. Correct, Apollon. Yeah.
Because I signed Arian to them. Arjen Lucas had told me a few months ago. I didn't even know I signed the band for him in Japan for the first record. I totally forgot about that one.
Here's one thing I forgot to ask you, Mike. What, other than Crimson Glory, who did you sign to Roadrunner when you had your A&R cap on?
I don't know. I did so much for the label when I wasn't working for the label. I got Zijl in touch with one of my pen pals, Mike Varney, who lived in Novato, California. And he didn't want to license his product. He only wanted to export his vinyl, and I talked so long to him, to put the stuff out on Roadrunner until Zijl got the license for Europe and Japan for his stuff. So I was just talking to the guys. Brian Slagel was a pen pal of mine when he didn't even have a label. He had a Heavy Metal Review. He had a magazine called Heavy Metal Review. So I knew most of those people. Masaito, he stayed at my place when I was doing shows because he wanted to see some festivals here. So in 82, 83. Brian Slagel also, slept on my couch when he had a meeting later that week with Zijl in Amsterdam. So they were just friends of mine. I was dealing with and helping him and get in touch with Zijl. So all that stuff came out. So I didn't sign a lot of bands. I just made contacts, and I let him sort it out. So, and I did that when I just was working in a magazine, get in touch with all those bands. The first Merciful Fate EP was recorded here around the corner in Roosendaal on Ravon Records, a label, that the first record was a compilation Aardschok record we put out. One of the two guys running the label was one of my writers, or one that started Aardschok with me. So there was always a close connection with all that kind of stuff, but not as years later I heard this is a job, it's called A&R manager. And then I started to work I moved into the Roadrunner office, working there physically was in 86, 87. Before that, I visited their offices once a week, and gave them tips who to sign or how to get in touch with certain people, but not as an A&R manager, just as a hard rock fan who wanted to get their stuff out in Europe.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of those contacts happened. Zijl never knew who Mike Varney was.
Yeah. That's the
He
missing
just wanted Steeler.
Yeah.
Right? You probably wanted the band Steeler because they were really huge.
Well,
I started with Exciter, Heavy Metal Maniac. That was the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steeler was, Mike Varney he was writing a column in Guitar Magazine or something like that, or I'm not sure what it's called, Guitar Player or just Guitar World, I think it is, in America. He worked
There's a lot of them. There's Guitar World, Guitar Player, this
and
stuff.
since 1980, I was in touch with a guy called Johan Lannerbeck. He sent me cassettes when he was jamming in Sweden with bands like Heavy Load and Silver Mountain. And Mike Funny was looking for a guitar player for his band Steeler. So I sent him a cassette of the blues and the demos and the jams he made in the basement in his mother's house. And then he changed his name to Yngwie Malmsteen. And my first job as an A&R manager I tried to sign Yngwie for Roadrunner, but because the first solo or the Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force, the first record was only released in Japan on Polydor, and nobody else wanted to have Yngwie. So I talked so long to Cees Wessels until he made a great offer to sign Yngwie for the rest of the world. And with Polydor Japan, they went with this offer in their hand and showed it to all the other affiliate companies around the world. And then Polydor released the Yngwie Malmsteen record worldwide because we made a too big offer for him.
Wow.
So there's a Yngwie Malmsteen story for you.
That's good.
Steve, what was your experience with Alan Becker?
Well, Alan was the main contact at Important, which owned Relativity and Combat, and they were our distributor. So I would go over there pretty much once a week and meet with him and Howie Gabriel and those guys, pitching our early releases. I think the first thing we did was that Christmas record that King Diamond put out. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it. Was it 12?
No Presents for Christmas?
No, yes, that was the first one. And then there was Whiplash, Carnivore. And then there were some records that were in Europe that they distributed too, Venom. And I can't, this is a while ago, but my job mostly was to try to hype up the sales staff. It was a pretty interesting place to go to. Alan's a great guy, though. I really like Alan a lot. He was a really good guy.
Have you seen this? This was the original cover that was for the Melissa record of Merciful Fate, but they chose a different artwork instead. So this was how the Melissa record would have been if it wasn't rejected by somebody. I don't know who rejected it, but this was the original. This was not released this way.
That was the Brussels band, right?
They're from Copenhagen, Merciful Fate.
Okay.
To answer your question further, before I worked at Roadrunner, I was at Enigma Records for 3 years, and 4 years, something like that. And we were distributing Metal Blade at that time. They went through us. That's how I got to meet Slagel back in like 84, 83, around that time. And that in Relativity, Important Distribution was one of our big East Coast distributors. It was like Gem, Important, Dutch East. And then on the West Coast, we had Green World, so those were our distributors. And that's when I first met Alan Becker. So when I got hired by Roadrunner, it was only natural that I could go over there. They all knew me already. Right. And Case knew that. That probably had something to do with him hiring me. Probably he knew I knew all those guys, and they were our distributor.
Yeah, it's interesting when I was speaking to Alan about that period. He speaks with a lot of reverence because it was a real emerging thing. Because this is like, by your time, Steve, it was immediately post Heavy Metal Parking Lot, and it was a thing. But prior to that point, it was just the grind of trying to identify what was good music and therefore trying to distribute it properly and knowing what to do with it. Speaking on that sort of front, Ed, did you ever feel that once Case had leaned into metal, did you ever think there was like a learning curve as to how to deal with it in terms of like dealing with them as artists and as products, or was it fairly straightforward?
No, it was not straightforward. I think it just grew, once he picked up on that market, opening it with market. I think it was all down to opportunities, making sure they could tour, the magazines would write about them. And I think, as I told you last time, King Diamond was probably the first big commercial success, Merciful Fate, King Diamond. And I think if you look on those records, the videos, the artwork, the photo sessions, then he went full out. Because in the end, success was a driver for him.
Yeah. Did your day-to-day role in the label, did that sort of like feel different once the US office opened and once all the international pockets started opening up? Did it feel like this is far bigger than what I originally signed up for?
What do you mean? Case felt that way?
No, as in for you going into the Amsterdam office every day in, day out, pushing bands, doing the distribution side and taking on many roles within the label. So when the American office opens up, the German office opens up, and the UK office opens up, that also within the span of, I believe, like maybe 18 months, 2 years. Does your world feel a lot bigger at that point? Or is the day-to-day still kind of the same for you? Can you quantify it?
No, of course it felt bigger, but that's because you get more releases, you get more hands. There were quite a lot of releases, as we spoke about previously. And then I did a lot of European PR work from the Amsterdam office with Germany, with Italians, with Spanish. The German office was a help, and then the UK office came in. It's like satellite marketing offices, I would say initially. They also had an A&R function, but I don't think a lot of the A&R came from those offices. From the German office, maybe, that's where Mad Max came in, and maybe another band. But definitely it went bigger and bigger, but I think it felt more bigger, not with the offices, but it felt bigger with the artists, because at some point, there was one big release a year, and suddenly there were 2 or 3. And later there were maybe 12 big records a year, and I think that's how we experienced the growth or the bigness, let's say the size of the company. Yeah, you can do a lot, but if they don't reach as far, but if they really reach far, you cannot open any magazine or they're there again. That's when you obviously the touring. If they open up on a festival or if they headline, the growth of the band was also the growth of the label, of course. And that's. The office didn't really play a role in there for me, for that feeling.
Yeah. One thing that was, in terms of like trying to research this early foundational phase, I think I've done quite well on a lot of like the tangible aspects. I feel like I know where the name Roadrunner comes from. I feel I know enough about Case's backstory. I know like a bit about the wider industry, which kind of informed his business strategy. But one thing I can't figure out is who designed the logo. Dennis made a comment the other day that it might have been the same person that handled the early artwork. So when Mike just showed that early Melissa concept,
I can see the guy's face. I just cannot remember his name.
Is it Thomas Home?
No. I believe this to be a Dutch guy.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember from this guy is that. I know what he looked like, just cannot get to his name, but he had a beautiful blonde daughter. Yeah. And he was, he didn't look anywhere close to his daughter. So once I asked him, they're like, how the hell does an ugly guy like you, his daughter is beautiful as that? And he says, you know what? So when you come, you just scream very loud. So, and I was like, so I never forgot it, but yeah. He was a good guy, but I cannot remember his name. He was a Dutch guy, and I think in the beginning he did all the logos until I think at some point, that the bills became too high, and then that's when Case switched.
Okay.
Jan, okay. His name was also Jan, I think, but I don't know his last name.
Yeah, I cannot recall
Dennis,
his name.
You must know him, Dennis. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I know him because I had to deal with him in the beginning.
Yeah.
Lost to the sands of time for now, I think, then, possibly.
It will come back.
Yeah, I cannot recall his name. I know.
If you do, I'll try and track him down.
I think I know. I think it's Van Uden. Jan van Uden.
Jan van Uden, right.
Does it ring a bell, Dennis?
Yes, that's exactly him.
All right.
How do you spell Ude?
Jan van Uden. Uden.
Uden, sorry. Right,
Van Uden. Jan van Uden, yep.
I said sorry.
Odin. They were an LA metal band. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I thought, wasn't it?
Jan van Uden. Yeah.
I'm going to try and track this guy down. But I could not find Louis.
Louis Dobbelaar? No?
Couldn't find him anywhere.
He lives near Naarden.
I think my efforts were somewhat diverted by the fact that there's a famous golfer with the same name.
He doesn't play golf. He was too drunk for that all the time.
He's got to be the guy that I went to the red light district with every night.
Oh, definitely,
I
definitely.
remember his name.
Steve, most definitely. You know, I was there with you too, but Louis most definitely. You know, he knew everybody.
All right, guy. I said that I'd keep you for an hour. I didn't want to drag you out any further than that. So I think we should go around the room, and if you can recall your favorite case or Roadrunner related story, and then we can sign it off, and you can continue with your days and nights. Let's start with you, Steve.
Well, figures you would start with me.
You're at the top left on my screen, mate. It makes sense.
Well, I can't remember Case smiling very often the whole time I knew him. He was very grumpy. And but he did smile when we had that great cat press party because it was such a crazy, everybody in the entire New York metal scene was there, and people were like, what the fuck is going on? And Bob Groon's there taking pictures, and Case managed to let out a couple smiles. I mean, when he fired me, it was actually very nice. He wasn't smiling, but he was really nice. He let me stay for an extra month, you know, after he fired me. He paid me for an extra month. And I mean, he was a really, I can't say he was a very personable guy. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say he was personal. He's very intelligent, but he wasn't funny, or he didn't joke around. He's very serious. But these guys probably know him a lot longer than I did. I only knew him for a year. They probably could tell you a lot more.
Yeah.
I go back with 48 years.
How many times did you see him smile?
Yeah, well, of course, I know Case a long time, and also we used to go on holidays together to France, to the Dordogne and all that. And he has humor for sure, but not during his work for sure. During office hours, he was always very serious, very serious. He's always in gray or in blue or in black.
James, I want to ask you what your favorite Roadrunner story is, given I think you said you were there for about 13, 14 months, but I bet you only want to see your nylon.
My favorite story of Roadrunner with Case story, right? Is again, I told you about the whorehouse with RCA. RCA Records.
Yeah.
Started RCA Records, and well, I don't know whether I told you the story, not the other guys.
Yeah, I've only just cut it into the video, so they don't know this.
Yeah. Anyway, Case called me up one day. He says, I think I've got an office for RCA. I said, okay, well, I come to Amsterdam and see where it is. So then he says, well, it's not too far away. Come, we walk out from his home in the whatever street it was.
Willems Parkweg.
Yeah, Willems Parkweg. 1, 2, 3 or so, something.
Correct.
And then we walked over. He says, I said, are we going by car? No, we walk over. It's not too far away, 20 minutes. And he shows me a building that I know to be a whorehouse, because I used to take artists and all sorts of record company guys there when they were on. And I said, are you sure, Case? This is a whorehouse. I mean, I've been here many times with artists and with guys that came over to Amsterdam. Yeah, but it's not anymore, not any longer. Now it's RCA Benelux. And the funny part of all, and that is what I like the most, is the receptionist downstairs had to open the door many times to Japanese clients who wanted to go up to the second floor or to the third floor to go for a fuck. And we had to explain to these guys, sorry, mate, it's not a whorehouse anymore. It's Benelux, it's RCA Benelux. I will never forget that story. And that's typical Case. I said, are you sure, Case? Are you sure? Yeah, it's a good building. It's a nice building. It's okay. Let's go. do this.
Go on then, Mike. Share us your favorite. It's going to be difficult for you because you've got effectively like 12 years of indirect work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Zijl always enjoyed it when he took people out to his Korean restaurant close to the office and then ordering some food where he already in advance knew they were sweating out of their old pores because it was so spicy. And he really was laughing inside himself to see those other people die at the other side of the table. That was his main fun thing he did. I had when I walked once into the office, I think in 1986, and I had a puppy dog with me, and he wasn't really well trained yet, so he took a big dump right under the chair of where Zijl was sitting, and it was a new carpet, but the smell was horrible. And for the next 15 years or so, whenever I saw Zijl, he was asking how my dog was doing. It was always his first question. Well, I mean, it's not really a Roadrunner related story, but it's a true one.
It's a good one.
It's a true one.
And go on, Ed, you can round us off.
All right. My memory is a little slow in getting, funny story from Kees. I must say, he's very witty. He's very funny.
He is, definitely.
Totally. It could be very, very funny. He could be very tough, and then obviously I would say there was always something untouchable, right? So you could never get too close. There was always the untouchable one. But he was very funny. In the office, he could make really good jokes. And I cannot remember. I was just trying to figure out who this was, but there was somebody who had Kees on the phone, and I don't know if it was Jan. It could have been Jan, or it could have been anybody. I think that he worked with, and he didn't know that it was the guy's birthday. And at some point at the phone conversation, the guy said, today's my birthday. So Kees went up in the room where I was. We had a fax machine, was the hip shit at that time. And he faxed the guy, in 100 guilders bill. And I thought it was pretty funny. He got the fax at 100, but it's a fax, of course. But that's the kind of humor. It was always a little bit in the witty side, more. How would I say? He liked
dry
intellectual jokes.
Fax you too.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, guys. I mean, so obviously this project for the last 4 months has been rather grueling, and it's been drawing blood from a stone in terms of like getting some tangible, researchable, things, because the British Library's behind me, but it's closed and it will be until late June or something like that. But you all contributed a great deal to the project, so I'm very, very, very grateful for that. And obviously for you guys, it's like it was part of life. It was part of just going into working every day and doing things for metal. But for someone who was born, no disrespect, good 30 years after, maybe after you guys, it's my relationship with it is completely different. So the fight that I'm trying to fight at the minute is how do we combat the oversaturation of music these days and give metal a seat at the table. And the thing to understand about Roadrunner, and I say this in all our chats, they did something special. I don't articulate it, but the articulation is simply the Case managed to take a fringe genre, and went toe to toe with the majors and toe to toe with all the biggest acts in the world. I mean, like while Simon Cowell was on the rise, there's nine nut jobs in jumpsuits selling platinum records, and that's unheard of. And it's been unheard of since. So for me, the task of reverse engineering that and trying to realize what makes it special is pretty important. And I want to thank you all for contributing.
Well, I think you do quite an amazing job, Jim. It takes a lot of work. And I think you have a better knowledge than us all together individually.
I mean, the difficult thing is with there's 3 people I've been avoiding, and one's Case, obviously, because I didn't think he'd be interested. Another one's Monty, and another one is Doug, because they've been there the longest and they have probably the most comprehensive knowledge of what happened 87 onwards, which is when the real fight kind of starts in a weird way. And the reason I'm avoiding them is simply because I'm having too much fun piecing it together from you know, trying to drag people from fucking Indonesia to tell me about the nylons, you know what I mean? It's more fun than asking Monty what he was doing in December 1987, you know what I mean? It's loads more fun this way. But unfortunately, I'm probably gonna have to start knocking on a few doors and trying to understand some of the things only they'll know. And that might be a difficult conversation. But
Monty has a tremendous knowledge. And I think in the whole success of Roadrunner, in let's say in the second part of it, when it became very, very big, he plays a very big role. And at the same time, you know, when he brought the bands, the innovative bands, that's where Case the marketeer, you know, was shining, because I think that's where he was at his strongest. You know, and I think at the beginning, just the market wasn't ready for bands the size of the bands from the 90s. You know, it just wasn't ready early 80s yet. But the foundation was laid, and Case wanted to contribute because he was intrigued. He told me by what the label means to people out there still today, because for him, it never felt like he was doing something special or that the company was any special, or it just didn't. But I think that's your daily life, and inside is always different than outside. You know, outside is a little bit more glamorous than inside, I guess. But you know, one of the slogans that he had in the 90s was breaking barriers, and I think that's exactly what he did with the company. You know, he just brought metal to the masses. Maybe it's not the right you know description for an independent label, but that's what happened. And I just think those bands became so good, you know, that they could reach masses. And he just opened the door.
There's now in my head, I'm trying to plan out this next stage, there's two stories, right? And there's one which is how the label interfaced with the markets and really brought that value to those fringe genre and empowered people like me as a metalhead. But the other story is just that part of it. Like, Case didn't realize how much it meant to people, and everyone who worked with Roadrunner has a real reverence for Case and real reverence for what was happening. Which is something you don't see a lot from any workforce these days. But the problem with that side of the story is it's so key to how it played its role with the markets. But that's not my story to tell at all. It's kind of disingenuous for me, someone who wasn't there, to say we all loved working at Roadrunner because X, Y, and Z. It's difficult to navigate. It becomes a lot more delicate. And I think maybe that's, if I tread incorrectly, there might be some bridges burnt and some upset people, but I'm willing to take that risk to understand that end-to-end story. I don't know if I was rambling on a bit there, but I think, you know what I mean? Like, your relationship with Case and with the label and going into work every day is a lot different from me. Yeah, I have to talk about it. Otherwise, it kind of makes no sense.
I think one of the things, you know, that maybe wasn't around at the time when Roadrunner started is that a lot of the metal labels, probably still today, because that's how independent labels start, is somebody who just, you know, finds a band, loves it, nobody wants to do anything for it, so they start a label. It's always fan driven. And I think this is where the difference is, because Case is not a fan. You know, he was a guy. He's a guy who just, you know, as Dennis said, a very intelligent, or Steev said, a very intelligent guy, smart, you know, out to prove a point, to build a market, to build a company, and to just, you know, I think what he learned in the 70s, and then his view built Roadrunner. And I think at that time, nothing against any of the other independent labels. I think as a record company guy, Case was just miles ahead of the other metal labels at that time, because they still need to figure out, because they just were starting out in the music industry. And Case was already, you know, a very experienced man in the music industry on a mission, very focused. You know, Louis and I, if somebody from his band was out on the road, there was a band on tour in Germany, and they said, like, well, you know, we have our record out, and we went in the record stores and we couldn't find it. And such a remark, you know, somebody can say, well, you know, can happen. But Case was, you know, that those things triggered Case. And within 2 or 3 months, you know, Louis and I were out in Germany in specific cities and targeting record stores and checking how many of the releases were actually in the stores. So, and I think it's those details that make a lot of difference. Because if we couldn't find it, he would go to the distributor, and realizing it was probably not the right distributor, and make a move. You know, so it was always very business driven. and not fan driven. And I think that just I think in the end just made Roadrunner because a captain like that, you need a captain like that to bring the ship to sea and go to the destination.
Yeah.
But he also turned around Phonogram International for sure. When he started working at Phonogram International, I always thought Phonogram International was a dull, gray, nothing office. I mean, until Case came there. And Case started to sign labels, independent producers, bands, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, before that, nothing happened in Baden, for sure. Nothing.
Yeah.
And when Case became involved in Phonogram International, he started to work with Phonogram UK, Stanhope Place, producers. And that turned around everything at Phonogram.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I must admit, when I came to work for Phonogram Amsterdam was the same. It was all dull, nothing, totally gray. I mean, a guy called, I used to work with a guy called Jaap Hoiting. He was like 55 years old. He was more in classical music than in pop music. And that's why they hired me. And it was
were there offices at the Whistle Lord Studios? Was that the one?
No, Whistle Lord was, we moved from Amsterdam to Hilversum. And we moved from the Drentestraat in Amsterdam, near the Rai building, to the Whistle Lord Studios. But Case worked in Baden, in the head office.
Okay.
And there was a guy like Ben Bunders, for instance. Koos de Vreese. Koos de Vreese was the legal guy. And later Koos became I think the RCA guy or the...
CBS.
CBS, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, Koos de Vreese. And that was the old part, basically. What guitar you there, Ed, behind you?
Well, this one.
Sorry?
What guitar you have there in the back? Now, Eddie.
That's a piece of firewood. That's my very first guitar that I bought in the when I was 11 or so, or 12.
Okay. Looks dangerous.
Oh, I should look dangerous there, not the guitar. you know, Jim. One last thing that just springs to mind is when this company was developing, there was this battle with Jan and Case, and especially about Jan being the business guy, on the money, really good at it, and Case understanding that you need to spend money just to get something. And I remember when in one of their arguments, Jan came down to Case's office, to Case's desk, and he just went like with a bill, I think, from the travel agency. He's like, "What's that? That's a business class ticket." And he said, "Well, that's 2.5 times the price." And he said, "Well, my flight was 2.5 times as comfortable." And end of discussion. and later, Case would, when the success came, right? Case would buy 2 business class tickets, so he would have 2 chairs, so nobody could sit next to him. Just on the flight, he didn't want to have anybody next to him, just talking shit.
Wow.
But he wasn't playing all the time. He would fly back on a Thursday evening and land at 10 o'clock on Amsterdam airport and be actually in the Amsterdam office at 10:30 or 10:40 and just have a working day. I have no idea how he did it. It sums him up.
Did you know?
There was always something to do somewhere.
Ed, did you know that he was a marathon runner?
No, I know he was, really? Wow.
Yeah, he participated in marathons very often. New York Marathon, London Marathon.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
Now
fanatic.
you're saying it, yes, there's something rings in the back of my head about it. But that takes discipline. So I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the floor. The floor is open for any other closing remarks before I ship you all back to your regular.
I must tell you, Jim, what I saw this morning on the video, the link that you sent me, I really like what you do. It's very nice, and I admire you for that.
Thank you very much. I was really
Great.
anxious actually because I thought you were going to ask me to edit it again.
No, it's I mean it. It's it's a lot of work, and the way you done it, great stuff.
I'll
I
echo
think,
that. I will echo that as. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
So I just wanted to say to Dennis, like when Steev said, that when we went to Amsterdam, Louis was probably there, but I think before Louis was there, Dennis was the guy, right, to take the artists out. I'm pretty sure there's one or two good stories there, Dennis. Maybe.
But
He knew where the whorehouse was, so I mean, come on.
I think that's peanuts, From all my years at Roadrunner, I've been out with many bands in Amsterdam. You know what the toughest one was ever? The ones that really make me jaw drop? The Nylons.
Oh, yeah.
The metal bands were easy, but the Nylons were like a different level. I'm pretty sure Dennis will know one or two things about it.
I enjoyed being with the Nylons forever. I mean, it was such a great,
There we go.
I basically broke the band with Sonja Barend, of course.
You did.
Barend. And then we'd done this show in one of the biggest or the most popular gay clubs in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
During the week that they were doing Sonja Barend. And Kay said, whatever it costs, just go and do it, and bring them over. And Sonja broke the band basically, because that show was like phenomenal. Know that. Sonja Barend's show was, and I was lucky enough to know Sonja very well, and I was I was pretty close with her when it came to plugging, to bringing her acts for the show. And so when I showed her the video of the Nylon, she was immediately sold. She said, do it right away, no problem.
I was once with the Nylons. I had to go to a TV show too. After they broke already, they were in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I had a 9-seater car because we had to go to the TV show.
Yeah.
And, hey, can we bring a few friends?
Oh,
sure. So there's 4 of you. It's your manager. It's me, 6. So yeah, we got 3 seats. We ended up with 13 guys in the car. One smelling better than the others. And one guy hunting me for the next 3 weeks on the phone call in the Amsterdam office if I wanted to come and look a video with him in the evening. No. And he would try again 2 days later. You sure? Yes. Still don't want to come. But they were a really fun band, a lot of great experience.
They were a great band. I remember we were going to Amsterdam for Queen's birthday, right? The 30th of April, Koninginnedag. And we were walking the streets, and all of a sudden, one of the guys started to moon. So puts down his pants. I still have the picture here.
Jim, I think you need to do a whole documentary on the nylons, because all I can tell you is once a girl made me put a pair of nylons on. That's the extent of my nylons experience.
At 4:30 this morning, Dennis sent me a picture of his gold record, which is a Roadrunner gold record for the nylons.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
First one.
Very successful with them, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
I remember flying over to Toronto to see their show because I didn't know what the show was all about. Because I had booked with Leon Ramakers and with Barry Fizzer through Mojo. We booked Carré for 3 nights, and I thought we would never sell that out. But
it's like Dutch Royal Albert Hall for the people who don't know what Carré is.
Carré, yeah.
Cheers.
And we sold out 3 nights. Boom.
Albert's Hall?
Huh?
The Royal Albert Hall kind of building, round for 10 years, a lot of seating going around. Beautiful old building.
Yeah, very beautiful. And we sold out 3 nights.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway, what time is it here?
Yeah.
Time to go get some food. Hey, Ed, do I see you tomorrow?
Yeah. I'll let you know tomorrow. I count on it. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Good seeing you guys. Thanks a
yeah.
lot.
Listen
you.
to Twisted.
Hey, Dennis.
Blowin Smoke with Twisted Rico. Buy Marty Friedman's new record. Buy Dennis's art. Subscribe to Aardschok. The documentary goes out 24 hours from now on YouTube. This will go up on Saturday as like a little reunion. I'll probably edit a couple of things out, but we'll see. But thanks very much, guys.
See ya.
After-
Hey guys. Bye bye.
Guys.
Take care.